Hey everyone, we have another special guest today for SaaS Talks. Troy Munson, you've probably seen him on LinkedIn. That's how I sort of invited him. I saw his post on LinkedIn. I was like, wow, that's really good. He's a senior enterprise account executive at Proofpoint. He's also the founder at FounderFee, which is like likes to call it the Wikipedia for entrepreneurs. So check that out. It's on his LinkedIn, and I'll also put the link on the bottom of this episode. But in today's episode, the topic that we're going to choose that got me excited was very tactical, which I like. It's how to close a $206,000 deal while doing a bottoms up approach, which is something that Troy did. And I asked him if he can tactically share how he did that step by step. So before we go into the step by step, I want to just sort of educate the audience and ask you, when you think bottoms up approach, what do you mean specifically?
Yeah, so when I think of bottoms up approach, I think of literally going at the guy that has zero influence at all. Everybody says find a champion, use that champion to go up to the EB and get money, all that good stuff. And this deal specifically was I went after people that had zero power at all, but I knew that they had a lot of pain. And so I was it's almost like climbing a ladder, right? I started on the first step very low, and then I kept going up and up and up and up. And then we finally got to the EB after a few months. But that's how I think of bottoms up approach.
Interesting. So, couple of thoughts. Are these people that have the pain? Are they like the end users essentially?
Yep, they're the ones logging in the platform.
And doing it that way, I would imagine that the sales cycle is dramatically longer than going straight to the executive side.
Yep. Yeah, usually it is.
Okay. So, all right, walk us step by step. What's so let's just, so you closed a $206,000 account, right?
Yep.
Deal. How long
Yep.
did that take?
It took from start to finish. It signed in June, and my first response via cold outbound was in February. So 4 months, give or take.
That's pretty damn solid. Okay. All right. So what was, day one? How did you was it an account that was assigned to you based on territory?
Yeah, so this was at my last company. I had hundreds of accounts, and then I went through like my top 50 accounts. So they fell in that top 50. And territories were all over the place. But yeah, it was an account of mine, and I knew I wanted to close them because they were spending a lot of money and they were a lot bigger than a few of the other accounts.
And all right, so you've identified the account, you had a list of them, you found it. What was your play? Did you do, I know some people do like research before they even prospect, or they just go straight for the prospect. What was your next move?
So this one started via LinkedIn. Actually, that's kind of where I go to start all my prospecting, to be honest, to see if there's any posts or any engagement that they have. And this one started on LinkedIn. And the guy made a post, and it was really just like a job promotion post, went from like specialist to manager or whatever that job promotion was. And I saw that he was active on LinkedIn. So that's exactly why I was like, all right, I might as well prospect into this guy. He clearly posts on LinkedIn. He's engaging on LinkedIn. But the first message that I sent to him was a Loom video that he did not respond to. That was just a minute or so long, kind of going over the video was going over the pains that he has because I knew that he was the hands-on keyboard guy, just given his title. And so yeah, I sent him a Loom video and showed him exactly how his life would be if he had our solution. But yeah, at first he did not respond.
Interesting. So what you don't have to say his name, but what was his title?
His title was digital marketing specialist, and then he got moved up to digital marketing manager.
And was he on the did you like you knew that his position changed? I assume sort of like a previous step was you went on sales nav,
Oh
added
yeah.
the company name to the account itself, and then
Yep.
you saved the certain ICPs or buyer personas in that list.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly what I did. Some people I left out. There was a lot of people I didn't need, but yeah, mainly like the very key titles. I think it ended up being around 10 to 15 titles.
Oh wow. So once you have like 15, you're like, oh shit, I gotta now like prospect. You pick the one that's most active on LinkedIn.
Well, so on sales now, I'll go to like that little tab that says posted in the last 30 days or 90
Yeah.
days, whatever that number is. I always go there first. And usually I preach not to pitch first, and I usually never do, but I felt good about this one. And it also depends on who I'm reaching out to as well. But Yeah, I just went to that tab and I wanted to see everybody that posted in the last 60 days, or again, I don't know what number they set it to, but it started there. And then he was like one of three people at the company that posted.
Okay, so you sent out a Loom video. Was it like you waving your hand, like, "Hey, Troy"?
Yeah, I think it was actually I could actually search it up, but I think it was a whiteboard. I use
And wrote his name on it.
yeah, I use a whiteboard. It's right here. It sits at my desk all day.
All right, so he didn't respond to that. How long did you wait until you followed up?
This one was about 4 days after, 4 business days after, and I just literally only followed up with "What'd you think of the video?" knowing that he didn't watch it because Loom gives you a notification. But I thought maybe it would trigger something in his head to be like, "Oh crap, I've got to figure out what he said in this video so I can respond to him." But that's exactly what I said.
Did he respond?
Yeah, yeah, he did.
Do you know what he said? Do you
I'm
remember what he
actually
said?
about. I'm gonna try to look it up, but
I
it
told you
was
I'm
over
going.
in the meeting,
I
right?
go real deep. I go like get
That
very
is
specific.
okay. I love that because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I hate when somebody says, "Yeah, this is what I did. Now my company's worth millions of dollars."
Yeah,
Like, what did you do between that? I really want to. We had lots of back and forth on LinkedIn, so I'm gonna scroll up and I'll get back to
yeah.
that.
So when you messaged him and you were waiting, he didn't respond. Were you at during that time messaging anyone else in the company?
Oh, everybody. I don't blast the same message to every person, but yeah, it was like he would get one message because I knew he was hands on keyboard. The next person above him would get more of like a ROI type message, and then the VP, which is who I wanted to get in touch with the entire time but never got a response, he would get a different kind of message.
And would you tell them at all, like, oh, by the way, I reach out to so and so also, or you would just keep that out?
This time, no, I didn't, and I actually don't do that too often. But I found what it said.
What did it say?
He said, "Hey, Troy, finally got a chance to watch a video and I am intrigued by the solution. If you want to send me your availability, we can get something scheduled for next week. Also, love that you said Friday Eve. So I guess in my video, I said Happy Friday Eve or something like that on a Thursday. And he said, I say that to my boss as well. So
Wow,
there was something right there that struck something in him. But yeah,
wow. So it doesn't seem like he was too low a position because you mentioned earlier that you're reaching out to like really, really low, they have no influence, sort of within the company. This person was he was a manager of some sorts.
so he was a specialist that just turned manager, but like so there was him, there was somebody in between, and then there was also the VP, but he would never chat with the VP. I always had to go above him to get
Oh
any
wow.
sort of yeah. So there was like the VP, by the way, in this whole scenario was the economic buyer. He was the one that had the budget. So this guy literally had no connection. It was like the director reports to this guy.
So I have a question. If you were, say, selling to, let's say your main economic buyer was a VP of sales or a
Yeah.
CRO, and let's call it was a relatively large corp where they had like a sales director, a sales manager,
Okay.
then like an account executive. Who
Yeah.
would you go after? Would you go after the AE or would you go after the sales manager? Because the AE
I'm
is the lowest end of, and let's say the product that you sell, let's say you're selling Gong, right? Gong helps the manager, helps everyone, but it really helps the AE
okay.
also. Who would you
So
go
that's a great
after?
question. If I'm Gong, I'm going manager. If I'm a tool like Lead IQ or one of these little tools where you can just sign up for free and automatically get value as an AE, I'm going AE and I'm trying to spread across the AE org as I'm also pinging the manager, director, VP. And then once you see people sign up, you can be like, hey, like four people on your team use this. And of course, I'd reach out to those four people as well. But so it depends on the product you're selling. If it's like a
Interesting.
12-month SaaS subscription, like a Gong, I'm going manager.
Well, what if is there a product that's like in between where it's not a Gong, it's not like a Loom or a Vidyard where you can get the end user, but it's a product very specific to the end user. Call it maybe like a HubSpot, let's say HubSpot, right? Like the end user actually used it as
Mhm.
much as the sales manager, if not more.
Mm, I see what you're saying now. I'm going both. I'm going everybody. That's like how I prospect is everybody gets a different flavor of a message.
I love that.
But I mean, I also don't use any automations in any of my emails. So I don't use outreach sales off, nothing like that. They're all one off. So every email I send is personalized. So it's a little bit different.
Well, yeah, at least it works for enterprise that way because you're working big accounts, but smaller quantity, and so
Exactly.
you can afford to spend time that way. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we now know. So you caught his attention. He's intrigued. You probably scheduled a discovery call. So walk me through. Maybe we can start like high level. We probably won't have time to go meta. I think with a lot of like salespeople, they're really interested in is like how did you even land that? Like how do you even like penetrate, which we just covered. Um, but now talk to me about like at a high level, like the discovery, how you then moved up the ladder to the next person in charge, etc.
Yeah, so this was started with that Loom video. We had some time together, which that first conversation was like your typical 30-minute discovery call. One thing about me, and it depends on the company I'm at. Right now, I don't do it this way. But my previous companies I did is I like to give a little bit of a flavor of the platform in the first call, regardless of if it's discovery or whatever you want it to be. If it's a full demo, cool. But I get very obsessed with the product I sell because I want to be able to, the more I know about the product, the more I can ask.
Yeah.
So on that first 30-minute call, it was like a 15-minute discovery call. And then it was like we teased around in the demo a little bit, just enough to where he was like, okay, I need to see more of this. That's kind of why I do it. But there was that 30-minute call, and then there was another 1 hour long like technical demo with our sales engineer that jumped on the call as well. After that, with that one guy, before we were able to move up to the manager level, like the actual. So I guess at this time he was a specialist turned manager, and then there was like I don't know if he was a senior manager or director. I don't remember his title, but took two
How,
calls to get to the director.
so how did you get him? So so he was your champion essentially. How did you get him to loop in the director? And I guess let me get very specific. At which call did you mention talk about like looping in the director? Was it that initial discovery slash light flavor demo, or was that second more technical demo?
It was the second more technical, and it was at the end, and it really just went down kind of like they were in a. He had a lot of pain, like ton of pain, probably the most I've had at that company that I was at that I've been a part of. But it was okay. Well, like your typical question, like, okay, so who else do we need to get involved? It was like that one of those kind of questions. And he said, this guy. I was like, okay, cool. Do you want to give me an introduction? And he didn't give me an introduction at this time. Because he knew that like no matter what he did, he couldn't sway the decision of upper management. So I actually just reached out to that guy and said, hey, I've had two calls with this guy. Here's what we uncovered. Do you want to jump on a call? And that's how I got to that guy.
Awesome. So I have a very important follow-up question that I think once everyone's listening, they were like, oh, but hold on, wait a minute. Did you ask permission or did you go straight? Or did you ask permission? Did you tell him you were going to do it or you sort of did it behind his back?
I told him. I told him.
How'd you say it?
I told him over LinkedIn after the call, like, hey, do you mind that if I reach out to X? And he was like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Because he saw it. He wanted it. But even after the first teaser, he knew like, I want this tool, but he can't go ask for tools. Like that's not his job is to go ask for tools.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a big question that people ask. Like, do I ask? Do I go behind their back? So you just say, hey, do you mind if I go reach out to so and so?
Yeah. And I have mixed feelings about that. I think it could go both ways. I think with this guy, because we developed a little bit of rapport on LinkedIn back and forth, and we had two calls already, there was like, we already had that connection. But if it was like one call, person was very standoffish, but you gather some good information, I'd go above them.
Without letting them know.
Yeah, especially if like they weren't interested at all. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to lose until I lose. I'm not going to just rule
Yeah.
myself out.
Yeah, it makes sense because like there's no relationship there. They didn't give you much. I hear.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if they were being standoffish, they're probably going to say no to going above them. So at that point, you've already lost.
yeah, exactly. What else? What else do I have to lose?
Yeah. Okay, this is good. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Obviously, we won't go through the entire anatomy of the deal. So
Yeah.
we now know how you were able to penetrate a $200,000 deal from scratch.
Yep.
We now know how you looped in higher ups. Let's talk about the last stage, sort of the last stage, or probably there's more stage, but the third stage, which is sort of closing the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to the director. Did you have to go above the director to like a VP after that?
Yeah, the director took two more technical demos, and then he introduced us to the VP.
Did you ask him to, or he just voluntarily like brought it up?
He bought like at the end of the call, it was kind of like, okay, yes, we need this based on our pain. Let's move this up to the chain. So it's kind of like, I guess he brought it up.
So okay, cool. So you got on a call with the VP. Was there any demos with the VP, or it was just more of a conversation?
There was one demo, but it was very short because he heard about our product through the grapevine. It was very ROI driven conversation. VP just knew like this is what I need. These are the numbers we need to hit. These are our metrics. Like I think this is controversial to say, but I think 98% of sales reps actually have never had a real champion. I think they've got, especially in the last like 3 years, I think they've gotten lucky and it's been transactional. But this might have been my first time ever like having that taste of a real champion. Like he saw the value. We built out this ROI case for him, and he was like, okay, this can solve my ROI problem. Here's this person. Here's this person. I'm going to bring them onto the call. I'm going to run that call with you. Like it was
Oh
insane.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that helped out a lot, but it was also like, how are you going to justify this internally kind of questions to like challenge him. But I won't go too much into that. I'll let you ask your questions. But yeah, I think that's when I was like, whoa, this is what a champion can actually do for you.
Wow. Um, I have a question. I don't know if it's a stupid question, so we'll see.
No question is.
There's a lot of products that like it's hard to guarantee an ROI because they've
Mhm.
never right. So
Yeah.
at that point, what do? You say you just use historic performance from previous clients?
Yeah, what this company did was they actually like benchmark all of their clients' performance and puts it out to the public, but just anonymizes the data. So there was like you could break it down to your industry and all that stuff to see like what on average you would get as an ROI. Which every company should do that if you could. Makes the selling a lot easier unless the ROI sucks. But that's kind of it was like a report that you can send out and then they can just filter through it. So that's how we did it. You can't guarantee an ROI ever. Every company is different, but like I wasn't like you will get X ROI. It was just like on average, customers in your
This is what you've done.
situation
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
got it. And talk to me about the closing.
Dude.
I know I have I always say like closing really isn't like an ending thing. It really you've closed the manager, you closed the VP, you've never right. So you're constantly closing. But talk to me about like as the deal was sort of like winding down and getting the DocuSign or whatever it is that was signed off.
Yeah. So we had that ROI conversation, and then I don't hear back from him for 3 weeks. I'm at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little sketchy. Maybe they just decided not to go with us. He wasn't responding to my emails or anything. But every week or so, I just would send because I knew all their pain, I knew everything like that. So I would send like a blog or a podcast that would resonate with them or was very, relevant to their situation. One of them struck a chord, and he immediately like I don't know what it was, maybe a use case or something, but he immediately responded and was like, "Hey, let's jump on the call with our ops team as well as this team." And when it came to the closing, it was like, what was it? It was June 25th or something like that. And I was like, hey, and that was when our quarter ended. And it was literally like I told the champion, I texted him because I was on a texting relationship, which if we can do that, get there. I texted him and I said, hey, our quarter ends at the end of this month. I know we only have 5 business days. Is there any way you can get this done? We jumped on a call and like our legal, their legal, hashed it out in one conversation. And within 5 business days, it went through all of procurement, legal, and everything, and it was signed.
Wow,
All because he was like, I will run this call for you, and he did. I was like, whoa, that's
that's
a real
great.
champion.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is a perfect example of like closing really is it's compounded. That
yeah,
it closed that quickly, not because of that call, because of all the calls that happened before that. I'll ask you this question. You mentioned texting relationship. What words did you use? What question did you ask the VP to get his phone number and start texting? And how often were you texting? And was the text was how? Yeah. So those were. Let's start with there.
yeah. So the texts were anytime I needed something, really, once every couple of days. And I think texting actually happened. I guess I left this part out. I flew out to Charleston, South Carolina, to meet up with the VP after
Oh
we had
wow.
like yeah. So after we had like this ROI discussion and stuff, we had lunch. It was literally a quick turnaround. I lived in
Oh
Texas.
wow. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
big part. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to put that in there. So we had that face-to-face conversation, that face-to-face time that nobody really gets anymore. So that probably helped a lot. And I got his number.
Was that your idea or he requested that?
That was mine. That was mine. I knew he was in Charleston, and I was actually wanting to see if I wanted to move to Charleston. So I went to go look at homes, but also made a stop to
Would you have
to.
done that otherwise if you weren't going to move to Charleston?
I would have tried. I would have tried. but yeah, so that's one thing. The lunch maybe solidified it, but it wasn't like, I don't know, when you go to lunches like that, you don't ever really ask for a business. You
You don't
kind
talk
of
about
do, but
business. Yeah, you don't talk about
yeah, it's
business.
just like you're hanging out, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how
Yeah,
you
so
build a
that
friendship, and that's where like the natural referrals come through, and that's
exactly.
awesome. Uh,
Yeah, so that I did not want to leave that part out because that was a big turning point. That was after he ghosted us, and then he came back, and I told him I was like gonna go out to Charleston, and if he wanted to grab a bite. But yeah, I would text him even to this day. I'll text him sometimes, but um, yeah, I'd text him anytime I like have a question like, "Hey, this guy said this. What does that mean?" Or
yeah. Does the
whatever. Can you get
company,
this?
did you present that to your VP or your boss to get approval for that, or that's like a thing that you're at the time your company that you worked at knew that that's part of like how you close deals?
I needed approval, but typically, if it's like a deal worth over X amount at that company, then they'd let you fly out
Yeah,
for it. But because this was 200K plus, it was like, yeah, for sure, go fly out.
that's awesome. I
Yeah,
mean, that's one of the takeaways I'm hearing here. For anyone that's listening, that you're working like an enterprise type of deal that's going to be a game
Yep.
changer, worth flying. I'd be like, hey, I'll be in the city, whatever. You want to grab a bite?
Yeah,
That's a big one.
yeah,
Um,
that's yeah,
Cool. Well, we're at time. I knew we're not. If we had an hour, if I did my podcast an hour, we would probably go more meta. But I think for a lot of people now, given sort of the economic climate, they're trying to penetrate accounts and build pipeline, and they're
yeah,
not really sure how to properly do it and the nuances, which I really wanted to cover. And I think that's pipeline top of funnel is very important for a lot of folks. So that was helpful. And then how to actually now be more sticky as a prospect or an AE to a prospect, and that's
yeah.
physically flying out. Um, cool, man. I'm probably gonna have you as a part two here, a part two session. But where can people find you? This is your time to shine. Plug yourself in.
Yeah, man. LinkedIn. I think it's just like LinkedIn / Troy Munson, but or you can just search up my name. That's really the only place that I'm active. Nowhere else.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. I'll put your LinkedIn on the bottom, and I'll put a link to your founder feed newsletter there
Oh,
too.
awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.